Hi, everybody. Today we've got another 2024 election recap. We're going to take a look at 5 different states, including Georgia, Iowa, Maine, Oklahoma, but we're going to get started here in the Grand Canyon state, Arizona. So let's see. For president, Trump won the state with 52.2. Kamala Harris is at 46.7. That's a margin of 5.5 points. That's the best out of all 7 swing states. Trump flipped the state back from 2020, and he did better than he did in 2016. And along with all that, he was able to win Maricopa County by about 3. Now let's go down to the key Senate race here. This was an open seat, and it was close, but Ruben Gallego, the Democrat, pulled it out with just over 50%. Kerry Lake is under 48. So Gallego running more than 3 ahead of Harris, and Lake running 4.5 behind Trump. So that was probably a winnable seat there for the Republicans. But Kerry Lake takes a loss for governor a couple of years ago. She comes back 2 years later, does the same thing in the Senate. So the Trump brand here is hit or miss. They're not a huge fan of it in Maricopa County, which Kerry Lake lost. They would prefer somebody more establishment. However, Trump, not that establishment candidate. He was able to win the state, which means Trump does have a unique appeal at the top of the ticket. It's also quite possible immigration was a much bigger issue for this state. I was saying that all along. Now, no governor's race here, but we've got some U.S. House races. We've got 9 seats. Republicans are going to control 6. Dems are going to get 3. 4 of them were technically within single digits, but there were no flips. Dave Schweikert held on in the first. Juan Ciscomani won by 3 in the 6th, so not much changing here in Arizona. Now, on a state level, we've got divided government. Katie Hobbs, the Democrat, is the governor, but in the state Senate and House, Dems were hoping to be able to win the majority here, but they came up short. In the Senate, Republicans control it 17-13, and in the House, not every race has been called still, but Republicans have clinched that one with at least 32 seats. Now let's go down to the ballot measures, and we've got a lot of them. The first proposition would amend the Constitution to require direct primary elections for partisan offices. That failed with 58% voting no. The next one got the exact same margin, and it would make it a little bit harder to get measures on the ballot, requiring signatures from 10% of voters in each legislative district rather than a percentage of the state's total voters. The next one also failed, and it would automatically end the governor's emergency powers 30 days after a state of emergency is declared. No got 56%. Prop 136 is interesting. It says it would allow anyone to sue to block a voter-approved initiative from the ballot by challenging its constitutionality in a lawsuit filed at least 100 days before the election. Under the current law, constitutional challenges can typically be brought after voters have approved a measure. They're not going to be changing that one. It was rejected with 62%. The next one, also kind of unusual, it would end term limits for judges. It would make it so that voters no longer have the ability to choose whether to retain a judge. And I think anytime you're trying to take power away from anybody, whether it's the politicians or the citizens, nobody wants to give that up. And in this case, it failed with 78% saying no. Next, Prop 138 would let employers cut the pay of tipped workers by up to 25% below the minimum wage. That one not at all popular either. No, getting 75%. Next is the abortion amendment. This would establish a fundamental right to the procedure, limiting the state's power to interfere with this right before fetal viability. That was a fairly comfortable pass, with yes getting 62%. We've still got a bunch more of these. The next one would allow for open primaries in which any eligible voter could vote for any candidate regardless of party. There's a lot in that one, but it failed with no getting 59. The next couple are tax related and not all that significant. Let's go down a couple to Prop 313. This is about crime, and it would have life imprisonment for trafficking minors. That one also sailed through with 65%. The next one is the one that might be considered controversial, related to immigration. It would make it a crime for those in the country illegally to apply for benefits or employment with false information, to enter the state outside lawful ports of entry, and to refuse to comply with orders to leave the U.S. It would also establish a new crime for selling fentanyl that results in a death. I think that last part should be separated out, but either way, solid support for that one. It passed with 63%. The last one here was the most contentious. It would require a review of state agency rule changes that are estimated to increase regulatory costs by $100,000 over 5 years. I don't think that one is as spicy as some of the other ones, but it was the closest. It failed, though, with 53% saying no. Finally, we've got the rest of the races, and these are all going to be county related. There's commissioners, county supervisors, sheriffs, etc. Still, not every race appears to be called, at least here on New York Times. The only thing I'll point out here is Maricopa County Sheriff. That is a swing county at this point, but that was won by the Republican. Pima County looks like that was narrowly held on to by the Democrat. So with all that out of the way, let's move on to another swing state. We've got Georgia. This should go a little bit quicker, but at the top of the ticket, we've got Trump winning the state with 50.7. Harris is at 48.5. The margin here is not as wide as Arizona, but like that state, Trump was able to flip it and win it after he lost it in 2020, and he got more support here than he did even in 2016. Now, there's no governor or Senate race here, so we can just skip down to the U.S. House. And this will be really quick here because no seats changed parties, and none of them were even close. They were all double digits. double-digit margins. Out of the 14 seats here, Democrats are going to control 5, Republicans are going to have 9. For state government, it's going to be a Republican trifecta. They already held governor, and they're going to retain their majorities in the state Senate and House. That's 33 to 23 for the Senate, and at least 99 to 79 in the House. 3 ballot measures here, but none of these are really that interesting in my opinion. They're all just tax-related. The closest one was easily Amendment 2. That is going to establish a new independent tax court with statewide jurisdiction. 52% were in favor of that. The other ones are here. You can take a look at them if you'd like. The very last thing here is district attorney for the Atlanta Judicial Circuit, and the profile of that race is higher than some other races. Fannie Willis, the incumbent Democrat, won with 68%. Not really a surprise, but that takes care of the Peach State. Let's go into the Midwest. We've got Iowa. And did Kamala Harris win this state by 3 points? No, she didn't. Trump actually won it by 13. He got 56%. Harris is under 43. It's been really easy to beat up on that Seltzer poll given how much of an outlier it was. But at this point, I don't think there's really anything to add. Now, no Senate or governor's race here, but we do have some competition in the U.S. House. There are 4 districts here. Republicans again swept all 4. The 3rd district saw Zach Nunn win another term by about 4 points, but the 1st district was one of the closest races in the country. It was also a rematch, but Marionette Miller Meeks won re-election to a 3rd term. She's no stranger to winning close races. In her first win in 2020, she won by just 6 votes. And for state government, it's an easy trifecta here for the GOP. They have massive majorities in both the state Senate and House. And 2 ballot measures here, neither of them were controversial. The first one would change the Constitution to say that only a citizen instead of every citizen can vote. It would also allow 17-year-olds to vote in primary elections if they're going to be 18 by the general election. 77% were in support of that. The second one is about the line of succession. Once the governor is out of the picture, now the lieutenant governor would take over, and they would have the authority to appoint a new lieutenant governor. A lot of support for that one at 81%. That's it for Iowa. Let's move on to Maine. This is the other state after Nebraska that splits up their electoral votes for president. So we've got Harris here claiming the state with 52.4. Trump is at 45.2. A bit of a red shift in this state, but not that much compared to many other states. Jill Stein at 1.1 here. Some people had said this state could potentially be super competitive. Maybe Trump could even flip it. I think that was more so before Biden dropped out. But even after the election, it looks like the state did not get as red as a lot of people might have anticipated. Now let's look at the 2 congressional districts for president. In the first, which is very blue, Harris got 60%. Trump is at 38. In the 2nd district, which Trump has won now 3 times, he won it again, but it was just not quite 10 points. We're looking at about a 9-point win there for Trump. So he salvages 1 electoral vote out of the 4. Harris gets the other 3. No governor's race here, but we do have a Senate election. And it's independent and former governor Angus King winning a 3rd term. He's at about 52. Demi Kazunas, the Republican, is at about 34.5. There's also a Democrat in this race. He's at under 11%. I think most people would consider Angus King to be essentially a Democrat since he does caucus with them. So there is a lot of vote here that's being split between different parties. But what about in the U.S. House? Well, given the 1st district is very blue, there's no competition there whatsoever. Shelley Pingree easily wins re-election. In the 2nd district, it was extremely competitive, and moderate blue dog Democrat Jared Golden narrowly clinched another term. Even while Trump won his district by almost 10 points, Golden got a lot of crossover vote, and he just won with ranked choice voting by less than 1 point. He's somebody that could be making a run in the future for governor or for Senate, but for the time being, he's going to hold that seat there for the Dems in the 2nd. Now in the state government, it's going to remain a trifecta here for the Dems. They've got Janet Mills as governor, and in the state Senate and House, it looks like Republicans have made some gains, but it was just not enough to flip the chambers. In the Senate, it's 20 to 15, and in the House, it's 76 to 73, and there's a couple of independents in there. Let's quickly look at these ballot measures. The first one would set a $5,000 limit for donations to political action committees. That got 75% and passed. The next 3 are just about bonds. Even though they weren't landslides, they all technically passed. The 5th one is a little bit different. It would bring back the pine tree flag as the state's official standard. They did redraw their flag there recently, and it looks like they're going to be keeping it. No got 55% of the vote. And finally, we've got 1 local sheriff's race down here at the bottom. The last state we've got here is going to be Oklahoma. And as expected, it's a giant landslide here for Trump. He didn't improve that much over 2020, but he is over 66%. Harris is under 32. Kennedy has 1%. It looks like, again, Trump swept every county in the state. The state does not have a governor or a Senate election this year. They do have 5 U.S. House elections. Republicans swept all of them. The Dems don't really have a chance at any of these given the way the map was drawn, but it is a very red state, and the GOP is going to easily hold all 5. And for state government, it's completely dominated by the Republicans. 40 to 8 in the Senate, and 81 to 20 complete the trifecta in the House. And 2 ballot measures here. The first one would allow the formation of public infrastructure districts, which would have the power to issue bonds of of up to $10 million to fund public improvements. There's a little bit more to this, but it failed with no getting 62%. And with something like that, I do wonder if it was crystal clear what everybody was voting on, or if more people voted no because they weren't exactly sure what this would do. The last one here, question 834, is again about citizenship. It would change the Constitution to say that only citizens instead of all citizens can vote. Big landslide there, 81% said, yeah, we want that. At the very bottom here is one election here for corporate commissioner that was won by the Republican. So there was a ton there, especially the Arizona ballot measures. I'm a little bit burnt out from it, but I think that pretty much covers everything in all these states. We've got 5 states left to look at, including California. We're saving them for the end because they took so long. But for now, let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the results in any of these states? There's President, Senate, the House, the legislature, the ballot measures. Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.